Hey guys, DMS3 TV here. Today I want to talk about these, the Audeze EL8 Titanium. These are basically the cheapest over-ear headphones you can get from Audeze. There's the signs, they're kind of on-ear. For some people they might be over-ear, but kind of sketchy middle ground. So I'm gonna say these are clearly over-ear. This is the cheapest clearly over-ear can you can get from them. Now, the Titanium is another revision of the EL8. This is the newest revision, and now what makes these special is, of course, there is an open back and a normal closed back version to EL8. Now these specifically come with this. This is a cable that plugs up to a lightning connector on an iPhone and has a built-in amp and DAC. So you can actually power these off a phone relatively well, but we're gonna get into that a little bit later. First off is the build, and one thing I will say is that these feel absolutely incredible in the hand. They are ridiculously solid. They are some of the most solid feeling headphones I've ever used, but it's just a feeling. You can't really see this on camera, but the hinge on this side moves very easily. This one does not. This one right here, I can easily move with one finger. This one, I bend my headband. You have to actually physically take and really turn to make it move. There's a lot of inconsistencies in the build, which is relatively disappointing. The paint on top, all of this paint scratches very easily, and if you have these sitting at all anywhere, like right here, these two pieces touch right here on the wood, whenever you have them sitting down, and there's already small scratches starting to form on there. Even when I put them in a case, it doesn't really matter. I mean, this is actually worn off a little bit from just the fabric in my case. The pads, which while they're okay, they are glued on. You can't really change these out unless you want to, one, void your warranty, and two, glue on new pads. And overall, I feel like they're lacking in comfort. This band on top is not very sufficient, and they weigh a lot. I mean, a whole lot. These are ridiculously heavy. And I mean, I have worn heavier headphones. These are relatively decent for their weight, and they're not the worst in comfort, but this headband is not substantial for headphones of this weight. Now, with that said, these do seal up insanely well, almost to the point of where it's uncomfortable, but I found if I pull the pads back until they're flush against my head and then let go, they seal on just fine, whereas if I just try to take them and put them on, just like that, the air pressure sometimes can be uncomfortable because they don't seem to equalize out very well in air pressure. So if I'm sitting here and I look up, they sound different. If I look down, they start sounding different because the air pressure changed depending on how they're sitting and where the weight is pulling them. But one thing I will say on the build is that these are closed cans, and they are the most isolating closed headphones I have ever heard. I can be blasting these and you can't hear anything around you, of course, because you're blasting music, but the people around you can't hear your music. You can put these on someone right next to you and crank it way up, and you won't be able to hear what they're listening to. You just won't. You might be able to hear like the faintest little thing, but they don't leak. Like, you're looking for a headphone that doesn't leak at all, this is it. This does not leak. The leak is not in this headphone's vocabulary. With this subject of sound in mind, I do want to talk about that. Actually, you know what? There is one other thing I want to mention. These connectors are ridiculously proprietary. I don't know anybody else that uses these connectors, and they do very easily pull out, which can be a good thing for a breakaway cable. But the cable I use more frequently out of the two, the 3.5mm one, comes out almost too easily, and sometimes I'd find myself walking around and one side would just fall right out, which I'm not a huge fan of. They don't seem to have a mechanism that holds them in there strong enough. Now, I mean, they do sell replacement cables, but you have to email Audeze and then hope that they'll actually sell you one, and they're not cheap. Especially not if you want the cipher cable with the amp and the DAC included. Now, like I said, this did come with two cables. One goes to 3.5mm, and it's one of these flat cables, which you can see right here. Completely flat. It is a very nice, reasonably high quality cable. The one that goes to 3.5 is longer. This is it folded twice, so I mean, you can tell it has some length to it. It's more than the span of my arms. While the cipher cable here, I can stretch to about right here. So I mean, here's it folded in half. The cipher cable folded in half. I'd say this is about maybe half the length, a little over half the length of the 3.5mm cable. Now we talk about the sound. You can power these on a phone. You can power them with the cipher cable on a phone too. They sound better with the cipher cable than they do just off a normal phone. Unless you have a phone with a really nice amp and DAC in it, like say, you know, the V20 I think is one of the best ones out there right now, maybe the G5. Or you could use, say, a Dragonfly Black or something like that. But honestly, it's just easier to use the cipher cable if you have an iOS device. But either way, you can still power these off a phone. and they sound decent. You can power them off an amp, and they sound better. But I do have some complaints about the sound. While they are good, and I do mean very good, it leads me to the point where I want to talk about diminishing returns. Because these are $700. And these headphones, while they are built to feel quite nice, and while they do have quite a lot of conveniences, and while they do isolate very well, these are not worth $700. You can get these used on eBay for around $400. And for that price, I would say if this is what you're looking for, if this is the kind of headphone you're looking for, these are a great option. But I'm gonna tell you what kind of headphone that is. Bass extension's pretty great. I can't complain about that at all. They definitely have more bass than the M560s. It doesn't seem super emphasized or anything like that, but it does extend pretty dang far, and I'm definitely happy with that. Highs are very well pronounced, but low mids feel lacking, and nothing about these headphones is particularly aggressive. They are very laid back sounding, which I mean a lot of people will like. I see this, honestly, this reminds me of if you took HD600, took out some of the low mids, gave it a little more highs, and boosted up the bass a little bit. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. Because other than that, other than missing a little bit of low mids and having some bass, they are fairly neutral. And I do like that. I mean, nothing about these is harsh, nothing about these is particularly offensive. What this is to me, this is a hi-fi company making a headphone that would appeal to your normal consumers. So the people who are used to things like Bose and Beats and Skullcandy and all that, it's like they're trying to create that kind of sound signature, or a happy medium between hi-fi and that kind of sound signature. Which, I mean, you might be into that. Honestly, I really do like these headphones, but it is noticeable. It is definitely noticeable. And they're not, like I said, they're not $700 headphones. I don't think anyone should be purchasing these brand new. If you find them used on eBay, that's great. But they are definitely, they're lacking compared to other headphones in that range. The build feels nice, but I don't really trust it given its inconsistencies. The pads being glued on feels kind of cheap to me, and honestly, where it's just a little bit too laid back in sound for it to really, in my mind, be worth that price. Though it might be to you. Like I said, the strongest point of these is definitely their isolation. Their isolation is ridiculous, and they are portable. I will say there's not many portable cans I know that sound this good. In fact, I don't think there's any portable cans I've ever heard that sound this good. But a portable setup isn't a home setup. I use these on the go quite a lot. But I've used these pretty much exclusively on the go if I'm not using my IEMs ever since I got these. The only other thing I've been using is my customs, which I do have a video coming out on the customs, the review on the custom IEM soon. If you haven't seen that, check it out. But I don't use them at home, not really. I sometimes do, only if I really need the isolation. I don't see myself using these in a home setup. So if you need something for on-the-go listening that's gonna isolate you really well, you need to power it off your phone, etc., and you're willing to spend about $400, the EL8 Titanium's a great option. But if you're looking to use them strictly in a home setup, unless you need the isolation, I don't see these as being a very strong candidate. And I would personally recommend looking into some open back options instead. So guys, I really appreciate you tuning in and checking this out. Like I said, I have the review of the custom IEMs from 64 Audio coming out in the very near future, so I hope you guys stick around for that. Until next time, peace.